What happened to Virginia McCullough? A best-selling author disappears, leaving behind a cryptic manuscript, a shattered mirror, and more questions than answers. As the lines between fiction and reality blur, one thing becomes clear. Someone wanted her story buried. Join me on V's True Crime Cronies as we dig through hidden files, encrypted tapes, and silenced voices to uncover a truth they never wanted us to find. Virginia McCullough, the acclaimed crime novelist known for her calm smile and sleepless page-turners, vanished without a trace just days before the launch of her latest book. No one knows what happened. Her front door was unlocked, phone neatly placed on the table, coffee still warm, laptop open, cursor blinking on an unfinished sentence. They won't let me live to finish this story. The house was tidy, almost eerily so. Nothing looked out of place. But Special Agent Rachel Langford felt something was off. Inside the bedroom, a mirror was shattered, blown outward, as if struck from inside. On one jagged shard, a fingerprint. It didn't match anyone in Virginia's circle. A witness claimed to have seen a strange man staring into her window the night before. No cameras, no ID, no trail. Worse still, 3 people who had publicly criticized Virginia's past books had also disappeared, under suspicious circumstances. It seems Virginia may have uncovered a truth, something far more terrifying than any fiction she'd ever written. When investigators checked Virginia's phone, the tech team uncovered a disturbing gap. A few minutes of data, completely wiped, as if it never existed. But through a cloud backup, one message resurfaced. No sender. Just one chilling line. It's too late. Say nothing else. No signs of hacking. No encryption. The message came in right at midnight. But according to her family, Virginia was on the phone with her sister at that exact time. A call that lasted exactly 3 minutes. That's when investigators noticed something strange. The call and the text happened almost simultaneously. One person couldn't be on a call and texting themselves at the same time. Rachel began digging through Virginia's contacts from her final week. One name stood out. Unfamiliar. No profile picture. No real phone number. Yet this person had been in frequent email contact with Virginia, always under the same ominous subject line. We're being watched. Virginia didn't just vanish. She was running from something. Or worse, from someone. A new witness came forward, an elderly woman who lived next door to Virginia. She recalled that on the night before Virginia disappeared, she heard the phone ringing over and over from the house next door. Then, silence. Moments later, the sound of something crashing, and a short, stifled scream, swallowed by an eerie, unnatural quiet. Call logs revealed that Virginia had dialed emergency services, but the call never went through. The connection dropped the very moment the phone began to ring. Rachel ran a check on the house's network lines. Someone had cut the cable. Clean, professional, with no trace left behind. This wasn't random. It was premeditated. And one final chilling detail. Audio logs pulled from the in-home voice assistant recorded a single command, spoken after Virginia was gone. Turn off the lights. It wasn't her voice. So now the question isn't who broke into Virginia's home. It's, how long had he already been inside before anyone noticed? Rachel pulled up Virginia's personal file, a list of her closest connections, now reorganized by risk level. An ex-lover she once accused of abuse. A jealous colleague bitter over her success. An editor with disturbing signs of control, meddling in every corner of her personal life. All of them appeared in the unpublished manuscript Virginia had been working on. She had changed the names, but the truth was barely disguised. Veiled accusations, intimate details no one outside the inner circle could possibly know. And then came something worse. Rachel uncovered a mysterious name, Lucien. He showed up repeatedly in Virginia's private notes, always followed by question marks and cryptic lines like, "He's lying." But how does he know about what happened back then? No one knew who Lucien was. No phone number, no email, no photos. A ghost, or a face no one ever thought to suspect. Virginia had started peeling back the layers, exposing people one by one. And maybe, just maybe, that's why she had to disappear. A hiker stumbled upon a pair of red women's shoes in the middle of a remote forest trail, coated in a thin layer of mud. They were identical to the ones Virginia was last seen wearing. Just a few feet away, the ground looked recently disturbed, but there was no body. Forensic experts confirmed the soil had been dug up and refilled just days earlier. Buried in the dirt, they recovered a small rusted object, a mini safe key, engraved with the initials VM. But the strangest detail? The location where the shoes were found perfectly matched the setting described in the final chapter of Virginia's unfinished manuscript, where the main character is buried alive. Rachel stared at the map and murmured. Virginia was telling her own story, but no one ever got to read the last chapter. Following the trail of the small safe key found in the woods, Rachel tracked it to an old bank where Virginia had once opened a safety deposit box, nearly a decade ago. Inside was a single item, a worn yellow folder labeled T. Holloway, closed case. Tessa Holloway, a young journalist who vanished without a trace 12 years ago. The case was hastily shut down within weeks. The official conclusion: left voluntarily. But what sent chills down Rachel's spine was this. Virginia had once written a novel, inspired by a forgotten case, but never revealed who it was based on. As Rachel flipped through Virginia's chaotic handwritten notes inside the folder, a horrifying realization set in. Virginia didn't believe Tessa disappeared. She believed Tessa was eliminated by the same person now watching her. Virginia had reopened a cold case. But this time, she became the next witness that needed to be silenced. In the dark corner of Virginia's closet, Rachel discovered a small fabric-wrapped notebook, hidden behind a loose wooden panel that had been carefully pried away. On the first page, scrawled in shaky handwriting, the ink smudged like it was written with trembling hands. "If I disappear, don't believe a word they say." What followed were fragmented, haunting entries. The sound of footsteps on the floor when she was home alone. Objects moved without explanation. The feeling of someone watching her while she slept. On one page, a sentence had been scratched out violently, over and over. "I said too much in that book. He knows I know." The deeper Rachel read, the clearer it became. Virginia wasn't just afraid. She was being hunted. And the most terrifying part? Virginia no longer knew who she could trust. Not even herself. Rachel began reconstructing the final timeline of when Virginia was last seen. Among the key witnesses was Mark Lewin, a longtime friend and her publishing partner. Mark claimed he left Virginia's house just before midnight, after reviewing her final manuscript. But nearby traffic cam footage showed his car leaving the area nearly 2 hours after the time he stated. When confronted, Mark faltered. "I might have gotten the time wrong," he stammered. But Rachel saw it, the panic behind his eyes, the look of someone cornered. Digging into phone records, Rachel uncovered a brief call made by Mark just minutes after he left Virginia's home, to an unregistered burner phone. No name, no identity. Rachel whispered the thought out loud, more to herself than anyone. He didn't forget. He's hiding something. The question is, who is he hiding? An anonymous package was delivered to a local radio station. No return address. No note. Just an old cassette tape, hand-labeled, Virginia's Last Night. The audio team extracted the recording. It was short, distorted by static, but unmistakably Virginia's voice, trembling, breathless. "I'm out of time. If anyone hears this, please don't trust anyone, especially him. He's closer than I thought. He knows everything. Everything." Then wind, the faint creak of wooden floorboards. A door opens, and a man's voice, low, chilling, whispered, "I told you to stop talking, Virginia." The tape ends with a violent thud and a long, dragging sound, like someone being pulled away. Rachel played it 3 times, and each time the chill went deeper. Clues from the tape led Rachel to an abandoned house in the suburbs, once Virginia's very first writing studio, back before the fame. The property had changed hands, but one part of it, the basement, remained locked and sealed off by the former owner, citing structural safety concerns. Rachel broke the lock. What greeted her was a thick metallic scent, a mix of mold and rust. Under the beam of her flashlight, the basement was heavy with dust, except for one section of the floor, completely clean. No cobwebs, no dust. As if someone had just been standing there, recently. On the wall, drawn in smudged black charcoal, were crude symbols, spirals repeating letters, and one word, scrawled over and over: "No escape." In the cracked concrete floor, Rachel found something else, a faded bloodstain, and wedged inside a fracture, a broken human fingernail. This basement wasn't just forgotten, it was a cell. And now the question wasn't whether Virginia had been here, but whether she might still be somewhere nearby, closer than anyone thinks. The dried blood and fingernail fragment recovered from the basement were sent to the forensic lab for analysis. Initial results confirmed it. The DNA matched Virginia McCullough. But that's where things got strange. The tissue sample showed signs of abnormal cellular restructuring, as if it had been exposed to an unknown chemical agent. One not listed in any civilian medical or toxicology database. Even more shocking, the lab's automated DNA scan returned a 98% match with an encrypted medical file from a classified military facility. When Rachel attempted to access the file, a warning flashed across the screen. Unauthorized access. Activity is being monitored. Someone didn't want this truth getting out. And Virginia may have stumbled into something far bigger than a missing person case. She may not be the only victim. She might be the last survivor of a government-sanctioned experiment, one that was never meant to see the light of day. Rachel returned to Virginia's unpublished manuscript, The Quiet Protocol. At first, it read like a work of fictional crime suspense. But as Rachel cross-referenced the story with actual case files, she realized every chapter mirrored a real investigation, many of which had never been made public. The story followed a secret organization that conducted human experimentation, hidden behind the facade of a special personnel rehabilitation program. The main character? A female journalist who begins digging after a loved one mysteriously vanishes. A cryptography expert reviewing the manuscript noted something strange. Repeated letters, bizarre dialogue phrasing, uneven spacing. They weren't typos. They were binary code. When decrypted, Rachel uncovered a chilling message. He doesn't just kill people, he erases their existence. Virginia couldn't go public with what she knew, so she did the next best thing. She hid the truth inside her book. One by one, the people in Virginia's life were cleared from the suspect list. But there was one name, mentioned over and over again in her emails, manuscripts, notes, and journal entries, that Rachel had consistently overlooked. Dr. Elliot Kessner, Virginia's personal therapist. She trusted him completely. It was he who encouraged her to keep a journal to confront her fears. He who held a spare key to her home, and he who introduced her to a controversial technique called memory reconsolidation therapy. a method originally developed under a now-defunct military psychology program. When Rachel broke into Elliot's private office, she found an encrypted hard drive. Inside were hundreds of audio recordings from therapy sessions, not just Virginia's, but from other missing women as well. Even worse, some of the recordings revealed something horrifying. Elliot wasn't just listening, he was manipulating. Virginia wasn't paranoid. She was being guided by the very man she trusted most. Rachel submitted her findings to her superiors, but the very next day, the case file was pulled, and she was officially suspended for unauthorized access to classified medical data. She had gone too far, and someone was pulling the curtain shut. But before her access was revoked, Rachel managed to back up the entire contents of Dr. Elliot's hard drive, victim lists, treatment memos, and most disturbing of all, surveillance footage from an underground basement where Virginia had once been held. In the final clip, Virginia, frail, sunken-eyed, looked straight into the camera and whispered, "If someone's watching this, I'm not dead. I've just been hidden." She wasn't just a victim. Virginia was a living witness, and her survival may be the only missing piece that can expose a nationwide experimental program buried beneath the name of psychological therapy. Rachel made the decision to hand over all the evidence to an independent investigative journalist. As the files, videos, documents, and Virginia's recordings were being prepped for release to the public, something strange happened. Every single one of Rachel's communication channels went dark. Her phone lost signal. Her GPS stopped transmitting. Every account was suddenly disabled. She was being watched. That same morning, a chilling news report aired. Virginia McCullough, previously presumed dead, has surfaced at a private psychiatric facility in Canada, allegedly suffering from severe paranoid delusions. But the final video Rachel had stored on an encrypted USB, never released, told a different story. Virginia, unconscious, strapped to monitoring equipment, mouth gagged with cloth, being transported against her will. Rachel disappeared shortly after. No trace was ever found, and the USB drive was never leaked. This story didn't end with answers. It ended with a question. When truth threatens power, is anyone ever left alive to tell it? The story of Virginia McCullough is a chilling reminder. Truth can be silenced, twisted, or buried, especially when it threatens power. Virginia wasn't just a missing person. She was a warning, and Rachel's disappearance proves some truths are too dangerous to tell. But the more we ask, the harder it becomes to cover them up. Subscribe to this channel to follow real-life mysteries, cold cases, and hidden investigations the world tried to forget.